Greetings, everyone. It is I, your erstwhile poet, conjurer, novelist, archivist, Dr. Treasure, here to talk with you about exactly what the title says: hoodoo, grief, and maybe even a little bit of gumbo. I'm going to banish homophobia today because it has been a chaos agent in my life. Homophobia is what stole a beloved friend of mine from me at the young age of 35. His name was Matthew Javon Holloway. And I thought about these things as I was finally pulling together my garden today, finally weeding my garden bed, um, pulling out any remaining rocks or stubborn roots that had taken hold, and taking a cue from the internet and using broken down cardboard boxes in order to be like the weed barrier. So, did all that today. Wet down those cardboard boxes, and I'll go get some more soil and put the plant starters in eventually as well. Better late than never. But always when I'm working with my hands or cooking or reading or journaling, I make these connections. And, you know, along with that, on yesterday, I got a chance to deliver my Hoodoo Banishing live for the first time for an audience at an arts festival at a local community near me. I brought up a mini cauldron and I had a slip of paper with the word homophobia written on it. And then I crumpled up the paper, set it on fire, and let it burn while I, got on stage on the mic and delivered the Hoodoo Banishing titled, I Banish Homophobia. Homophobia is antithetical to hoodoo because hoodoo, as I said in our previous episode, was is from something much older. So hoodoo predates colonial taboos about same gender loving people. When I was in graduate school, I remember reading these contact narratives, these journals that um, European colonizers wrote about meeting indigenous people in North America and South America. And I remember they decided that they wanted to do some negotiation. And this certain indigenous group of people sent out their emissaries. And their emissaries, their ambassadors, happened to be women. And the Europeans said to them, well, you're not taking this seriously if you've sent women. Now, what does that have to do with hoodoo and homophobia? Well, I'll make those connections for you. Their femphobia, their anti woman stance, is the same uh, strange hatred that drives the violence and shunning of queer people, especially those who exhibit the feminine spirit and the femme mystique. At its root, a lot of homophobia has to do with a hatred of what is female and what is woman. And my friend Matthew Javon Holloway, who was an incredible pianist and a playwright and just a gifted man, was also an effeminate gay man. He played piano in churches. and he loved church. And I really do believe that if he had taken the journey that we're taking down the hoodoo path, he would have been able to see the lies and the harm that biblical ideas about the brokenness of gay people and bisexual people, lesbians, trans people, he would have been able to see through those. But Matthew just didn't live long enough to make that distinction, to make the conclusion that Christianity and its Johnny come lately deity were agents of destruction and destroyed him. You know, I remember going to church once when I still went to church. Matthew came into Memphis to visit me. We were very close friends. And I decided we would go to this Baptist church. He was raised Methodist, but played church in lots of Baptist, played piano in lots of Baptist churches. And we went to this church. I remember Matthew had on all white. We sat down, you know, ready for a good sermon. And apropos nothing, the preacher just decided to let us know that God made Adam and Eve and not Adam and Steve. He was, the preacher, provoked by Matthew's presence. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, Matthew was probably a 7 in the effeminate range. He didn't wear makeup or women's clothing, but he was swishy and it was delightful. And anybody who was around him for any amount of time, they would have noticed it. And that preacher noticed it, and it colored his sermon, and it made him say discomforting and cruel things from his pulpit. And I remember Matthew didn't even look at me. He just stared straight forward, but I could feel him become rigid. And you know, Matthew didn't deserve that, and none of our queer relatives deserve that. The banishing I delivered live yesterday, oh, so many people thanked me for it. Check it out.
Banish homophobia. I banish homophobia, which is to say, I banish the hatred of ourselves. I banish heterosexism, which is to say, I banish the oppression of ourselves. I banish transphobia, which is to say, I banish the hatred of women and the feminine in ourselves. I banish. I banish the spell of homophobia and the cultural conditioning that makes fear of same gender loving humans seem natural. I banish white supremacist notions of natural. For we know that black people were named natural slaves by these same genocidal colonizers. I banish any negative feelings that arise when you see a womanly man or a gentlemanly woman, a handsome girl or a pretty boy. I banish the veil thrown to disappear our queer family and hide that lesbians have always been here, and gay men have always been here, and bisexual people have always been here, and transgender people have always been here. I banish. I banish the homophobic colonizer inside us. I banish the self-fulfilling prophecy of failure that has us believe that there is freedom without our gay relatives. I banish the delusion that we will reach freedom without our entire selves. I banish the cottage industry of conversion and all who promote it. I banish a hatred that would justify kicking a queer child out of their home. I banish and free us from the hex of homophobia.
As I said earlier, that banishing was so well received, and I can't wait to share some more of those live. But now I'm sharing with you all something I do every Sunday, and I try to do it at least 2 other times a week, which is cook a fresh and nutritious meal. Um, I have 2 adult children, and they really enjoy my cooking. And I can't say that I quote unquote love to cook, but I understand how important it is. I am good at it. And there are moments when I can find it meditative. Um, but in general, it is not what I would consider a hobby. You know how some people say, cooking is a hobby and they'll list that along with reading. And I don't generally do that. Cooking is a necessity for me. But this Sunday, I decided to make a simple gumbo. And what I did was I started with the roux, and this roux was made with vegetable oil and flour. I added a little butter too in the oil to try to deepen the flavor. I don't cook gumbo often, so actually a gumbo novice. But because I was raised cooking soul food and cooking Southern cuisine, it isn't difficult for me to switch on the gumbo part of my chef brain. So there I am, melting butter into the oil and preparing for the long and patience necessary process of creating a roux, because you may know this if you cook gumbo, or if you've ever watched other people cook it. It starts with the roux, which is the base of gumbo stew or soup. I guess gumbo is more of a soup because it's not necessarily thick, but you start with oil and flour, and then you slowly stir it, slowly until it deepens to a rich chocolate. And when it is as dark as you would like it to be, that is when you start to put all the other ingredients in. So I'm starting here with this. And while you're watching this, um, I'll share with you some more thoughts about hoodoo, grief, as we finish this gumbo. So, in an earlier video, I talked about how hoodoo, descends from something that predates Christianity. And for me, that has been helpful, uh, because not having the paradigm of a heaven and a hell, to me, helps me understand and accept death a bit more, a bit easier. No one loves to think about the fact that they're going to die, but we don't get out of this thing alive. So we're all going to wind up in the ancestral realm at some point. And for me, without heaven and hell, I am free to focus on the fact that I'm an ancestor in training, that I'm a future ancestor, and not only that, that all my loved ones and the people I descended from who are now in the ancestral realm are accessible to me. that they are my spirit team and can be called on to assist me, to offer guidance, to consult with me in this life, in this realm. And part of my job is to remain accountable to community so that I can then become the ancestor that is able to be consulted and that can assist and be valuable for my descendants. Um, Gumbo is an ancestral leaving. Just a few months ago, it's a beautiful chocolate now. Just a few months ago, I went to Senegal, West Africa. That was my first time traveling to that part of the continent. I had been to East Africa, to Tanzania, and South Africa, the country of South Africa. Um, and I have to say that in West Africa, I did notice that I was there with closer cousins. So the gumbo was finished, as you can see, and my kids are enjoying it. They love my cooking. It's full of sausage. I did a sausage and shrimp gumbo with okra and, of course, the Holy Trinity and beautiful rice. There's a store-bought cake that my son Ramses is getting a slice of for his dessert. And I am now tasting this delicious gumbo, an ancestral leaving that reminds me of all the ancestors that have gone on, like my dear Matthew. I'll see you guys next time.